Hello, welcome to another Tweedy Outdoors video. I'm in Epping Forest again. Thought I'd do a slightly different walk this time, see a bit more of the northern end of Epping Forest. So I've started off at Epping, got the central line to there, and I'm going to walk down to Loughton and go by way of two Iron Age Hillforts. Somewhere in the middle, going to do a bit of cooking as well. I've had the Black Forest on my mind a lot recently. I don't know why. It might possibly because some of my recent Gevrey Chambertin tasting notes have included Black Forest Gâteau. I'm afraid the budget for a Tweedy Outdoors video cannot extend to a trip to Germany. So instead, Epping Forest is going to have to substitute for the Black Forest. And I'm going to make something which feels very tenuously German. It's probably more Swiss, a sort of Rosti dish. Very close to the M25 actually here. Just about to walk under it, I believe. Turns out I misread the map. The M25 I think is actually passing underneath me right now, which I suppose is nice in terms of maintaining this sprawl of woodland. But I was kind of rather hoping for a scene going through a dismal underpass. I could perhaps have borrowed the music from Mr. WC21's most recent video. That was great. So yeah, you're just gonna have to put up with some pleasant woodland instead. What a disappointment. Raining a bit now. Wasn't entirely forecast. Apart from the din of traffic in the distance, this is really idyllic. The leaves are just starting to change colour a bit. There's a few orangey, yellowy browns. There's some nice light despite the drizzle. I was hoping for a bit more fungal action. I've been going off the path of it, and I hoped I might find a bit more than just these. That was plate fungus over there, and this is probably something like honey fungus, isn't it? If it's on a decaying log like this. There is a strict bylaw in Epping Forest prohibiting the picking of mushrooms, so I won't be disturbing anything while I was here, but I hope to at least be able to photograph a few. This looks a bit more like it. For all you ditch fans out there. Oh, look at that. A couple of interesting specimens. Wonder what they are growing out of that rotting log there. Here is the, I think it's univalent, outer ditch and bank of Ambresbury Banks. Did I say it correctly then, finally? We have breached the outer defences, if indeed this was ever a defensive or military structure in that sense, Ambresbury Banks. It's nice. It's a shame about the traffic noise in the background. Hopefully you can't hear that so much on the little lav mic. Once again, this is a site that has been excavated by our old friend Augustus Lane Fox Pitt Rivers. Cue some graphics or something. In the 1880s, I think, sometime around then. And he's what a busy man. I don't think any of the finds here were particularly earth-shattering. Almost sounds like a pun, doesn't it, for an archaeological dig. It was sort of the usual shards of pottery and so forth, and I think it generally dated it pretty firmly to the Iron Age, the Hillfort itself, possibly some hints of earlier occupation in some form, and its use probably ceased around the time of the Roman occupation, like Loughton Camp nearby. It's probably something to do with the bordering of two Celtic British tribes, or early Romano-British era tribes, the Catavaloni and the Trinovantes. It's interesting that we do have these two hill forts so close together. Almost wonder if one, at one time at least, was occupied by one of those tribes and one the other, and they'd sort of stare across the expanse at each other menacingly. It's likely that some of the trees around these hill forts would have been felled at that time. Obviously, one of the major points of having a hill fort on top of a hill was that it's a vantage point to see out over the surrounding landscape. So it may have been the case, at least some point in history, that these two hill forts sort of projected from above the canopy of the rest of the trees here in Epping Forest. And if you had the right vantage point to see them, it must have been quite an impressive sight seeing them poke their heads up above the trees. I suppose this is now the opposite ditch and bank from where I entered. This is at the southern end now. Not quite the same sense of drama as Loughton Camp. Rate my hill fort. That's a niche app. I think there's a sign here. I'll probably tell you a bit more authoritative information than the nonsense I've been babbling. Oh look, a stone axe head. Sulphur tuft, something bright yellow. That looks to me like the cap of a penny bun. Lovely collection of plate fungi on this presumably dead silver birch tree. Sorry for the terrible jerky camera work. They go all the way up. These, I think, are something like shaggy ink caps, also sometimes called lawyers' wigs. I was just trying to cut off a corner by following this path to get back to the track, wandering around over there looking for mushrooms. I seem to have gotten a bit lost again. Once again, I should reiterate strict bylaws against picking any mushrooms in Epping Forest. I have touched nothing and I won't be taking anything home with me. Oh. Wow, you see that? Sorry, probably pretty pixelated, but I was just sort of waiting there until I showed up. Nice little forest of moss here. Looks like treetops, doesn't it? Like drone footage going over an area of temperate rainforest. Yes, I've definitely gone a bit awry. Again, I seem to keep doing this. Wander off into the undergrowth because I spot some interesting mycology, and then I end up in the middle of all the bracken without a good path to get back to the track. Why does it always end up like this? Wading my way through all these ferns, probably covered in ticks. I don't know if you get many ticks in Epping Forest, but if there are any here, I've definitely been through all the worst bits to pick them up. Some nice little lesser seen corners though. I can hear a road just over there. Tempted to just walk along the road for a bit to get back to some sort of sensible track. Right, I think I've got out of that really difficult bit now, crossed over a road. There were 3 people behind me and I thought it's weird that they're following me, and it seemed that they were similarly kind of lost in that bit of undergrowth. Followed me to the road. Don't think that was a particularly great idea. I'm not sure I went a very sensible way, but anyway, hopefully eventually now I've got some easier, more less dense beach, woodland area to walk through, and I'll get back to that track and eventually I'll get to Loughton Camp. Nice little trickling stream to cross over here. Yes, these are deer tracks in the mud just before they've crossed the stream here. Deer over there again. I'm always just too far away and just too slow to catch them. I feel like I've seen that pair before. Still some distance from Loughton Camp, but there's almost a sense of earthworks here in whatever this bit of the woods I'm in. Really nice again, once again, apart from the din of traffic off in the distance. Lovely bit of beach woodland here. Very peaceful apart from the idiot in a tweed suit talking to his imaginary friends in the little box. It's a nice woodland view, isn't it? You know what? I think I might sit here and make my lunch. It is getting on a bit. It's 1:30 now. I'm hungry. It will take a while as always. And Loughton Camp can perhaps be an after lunch treat. So for today's lunch, I found this in the supermarket some time ago. I briefly thought, in a moment of not really thinking it through very carefully, this would be really convenient for camping. It's sort of powdered, I think, Rosti. So you add it to some boiling water, a bit like making stuffing. This is from Paxo, that's the sort of thing they do. And then you fry it. And I thought, what a convenient way, rather than carrying the weight and the bulk of potatoes. I mean, assuming you had some water source when you were out camping, which I didn't, I just brought it with me. But then when I looked into the specifics, there's actually quite a lot of effort. The 2 different pans required, boiling first, frying later. So I just put it in the back of the cupboard, forgot about it. And I've got it out again today because it seemed vaguely in keeping with this idea I had of doing something in the Black Forest theme, which is very tenuous. I think what I'm doing is more of a Swiss dish. It's something that I had at a restaurant called St. Moritz. I think I actually even have this on video. It is now in a Tweedy Pubs video, maybe, tour of Soho. And I had this dish there, I think at that time, Rosti Aux Legumes. So it's a rosti, a few boiled vegetables on top, bit of cheese on top, and then gratin. It's probably going to be a disaster because I've got a feeling it's going to stick to the pan, it's going to be a giant mess, but we'll give it a go. It might be fun to see me fail. So the first thing I need to do is boil some water. Already chopped up some vegetables at home. We have some broccoli, a few slices of courgette and some carrots. That can all go in there. While that water is coming out to the boil, I can open up today's wine, some Gevrey Chambertin, of course. This is in fact the same producer as the recent video I did where I was on Cissbury Ring. I'm not actually quite in a Hillfort now, I'm in between two Hillforts anyway. This is a different vintage though, it's the 2019 vintage. I don't really want the vegetables to be too well done, so I'm just going to give it a minute or two with a rolling boil. They will get a sort of bit of extra cooking later. We'll see when we get there. It's the blowtorch, isn't it? No surprises here. It's standard Tweedy operating procedure. So in a very cumbersome, inefficient way, I'm going to take the vegetables out. But I want to keep the water in the billy can for two reasons. Partly because this has measuring levels on it, so I can tell how much water I actually have more easily if it's in the billy can. And also I'm going to use that to mix this slightly dubious looking Rosti stuff. 260 millilitres of boiling water and mix well. And I think that is as near as damn it. And per the instructions, I feel like I'm making stuffing for Sunday roast. Empty the sachet into a mixing bowl. This is going to have to count as a mixing bowl. I'm not hugely convinced. How are you feeling about it? Apparently that needs to stand for 5 minutes, just like making stuffing. So time for a quick slurp. Cheers to Keith Floyd, as always. I have done Rosti the proper way at home. It's a bit laborious and time consuming and is very prone to failure. The issue I've had with Rosti in the past is that the grated potato, boil potatoes first, then grate them, and they end up just a little bit too soggy, and there's all this sort of faff of putting it in a cloth and trying to squeeze the moisture out and all of that stuff. So it's not a straightforward process. Not that this is guaranteed to be successful either. This could also be a disaster, but anyway, shut up Tweedy, drink some wine. That's had about 5 minutes, not looking hugely appetizing in its current state. I think I can put some oil in the pan. Have some butter to add to that as well. This is not particularly windy today, so that's good. It's going to make frying easier than on my last outing. So I put that butter in now as well. I put it in the same tub as my cheese, so it's got a little bit mixed up with the cheese now. Oh well, bringing some cheese to the party. Oh well. Sure, that's fine. Well, wish me luck. There's quite a lot of butter there, isn't there? No, probably a little bit over the top. I'm very sceptical about whether this is going to work or not, but we'll see. Really doesn't look anything like potato, does it? It's much more like stuffing. I actually brought along a spatula for once rather than thought this is the sort of thing where just a spork might be a bit inadequate. I think the chances of being able to successfully flip this are incredibly low. That is the current state of the Rosti. Not getting a huge sense it's forming one cohesive piece without just sticking to the bottom, but I think I will try flipping this over to make life easier. I can use this lid or whatever that is from either cook set, which just about fits this pan. Hopefully I can do this without burning myself too much in the process. Oh, that's not as bad as I thought it might be. Not sure if it's traditional, but I might give that a bit of a deglaze to remove some of those caramelised bits. This is Rosti a la Tweedy, you know. Well, it has fallen apart, but I'm going to be eating it out of the pan anyway, so does it matter? The main thing is to make sure it's cooked all the way through. I can sort of pat it down now and make it look a bit more presentable probably. May actually tip the vegetables on top now, because I'm certainly not going to be flipping that over again after that giant mess. Can also add on some Emmental cheese now. Give this a bit of a blowtorching now, because it is it's going to be starting to burn on the bottom, isn't it? So might as well burn it on the top as well to even it out. Once again, this is completely normal behaviour, isn't it? Here I am on a Tuesday lunchtime, blowtorching a Rosti. I hope you'll agree that's a fairly pleasing sight. I think I'm going to call that done. You can't really appreciate what the state of the Rosti underneath, and maybe that's a good thing because it probably is a horrible mess, but I get the sense it's probably cooked. Hopefully there'll be at least some crispy bits in amongst all of that. See what that's like. So we have a bit of the Rosti, Paxo, Rosti stuffing mixture, bit of courgette, bit of carrot and some cheese. Vegetables very nicely cooked, nicely warmed through from that little final section in the pan with a bit of blowtorching. Cheese lovely melted, that nice gratiné flavour. The Rosti is just sort of delivering stodge, not getting a lot of potato flavour from that, but it's certainly not unpleasant. Makes the dish a bit more substantial, and it's closer to mashed potato, I think. Occasional crispy bit. But the melted cheese and the vegetables on top are delicious. And of course it goes very nicely with the wine. I would call that a partial success. I think certainly the vegetables and the cheese work brilliantly. I hope you'll agree that looks at least okay, doesn't it? And the Rosti part it's okay. Edible stodge. Don't know if you can see there. There are at least some slightly crispy bits. And they do taste a bit more potatoey actually. I'm sure deglazing is not part of any traditional Rosti recipe. Of course that's not going to help the whole thing crisp up. But at the same time, it's better than it having a layer of charcoal on the bottom. All finished. That really wasn't bad. As you can hopefully see there, it's not burnt too badly on the bottom. Here is the view I have been enjoying over lunch. I probably showed you this before lunch as well, but I think that's rather lovely actually. Beech trees. They are so majestic, aren't they? That was a very difficult spot to get up from. I was really enjoying this little bit of Epping Forest. Could have happily whiled away a couple more hours sitting there enjoying the wine, but I felt like I ought to make some attempt to resume normal life. So hashtag leave no trace as always. I think the thing is with Epping Forest, I think when it's at its best, you've got to get off these main tracks. When I'm on the main tracks, I do occasionally pass by other people. That sort of ruins the charm a little bit, but wandering through the slightly more remote parts, if you could just close your ears off to the ever-present distant din of the traffic, and it's really quite special for something inside the M25. Moss on trees once again. Finally into Loughton Camp. Would have liked to have filmed a little bit at the ditch and bank at the entrance, but I felt a bit self-conscious because there were 3 youths there, I guess guys in their early 20s, who actually stopped and asked me, excuse me, is there a fort near here? And they were stood on top of the embankment and said, yeah, you're standing on it. I think they expected somehow, you know, an actual castle, stones and turrets and all that. Possibly a sad reflection on the state of history teaching in schools at the moment, that people in their 20s have no idea what a hill fort looks like. I think I've probably filmed this sign before in previous videos. This may be one of the entrances where I approached it prior to now. You can hopefully get a bit of a sense that was underwhelming for those 20-something-year-old guys of the embankment over to the right of the screen, and I think that's at least a bit of the ditch over to the left there. I think it's a rather beautiful spot. It's absolutely covered in beech trees again, and some of them probably pretty ancient. This again is Iron Age, probably of a similar sort of date to Ambresbury Banks, which I'm still struggling to pronounce, and I think also similarly more or less fell out of use with the Roman occupation. As I may have said earlier, I think this has a bit more of a sense of drama to it than Ambresbury Banks. Possibly just I've been here a few times before, and it's some sort of loyalty to my favourite Epping Forest Hillfort, but there are some slightly more pronounced elevations here. Some of this is just natural features of the landscape that they've taken advantage of. And if you can get a sense of the drop away down there, it's a little bit more elevated compared to the surrounding landscape, and there's a nice run of embankment down along there lined with beech trees. That all looks a bit more noteworthy and significant than its equivalents at Ambresbury Banks. Suddenly been rudely ejected from the woods. Well, by my own volition, I walked that way, turned in that direction, and it's back to civilization, disappointingly. So this is Loughton, Still feel like it ought to be Loughton or Loughton or Luton or just about anything else, but I think it's Loughton. Loughton? Oh God, I don't know. Whatever I say, somebody will tell me I'm getting it wrong. On the tube, they were saying Loughton. So if I've got it wrong, direct your complaints to TfL, not me. Okay, I have made it to Loughton station. Didn't record too much post Loughton Camp. I was feeling a bit, I don't know, lethargic, but in a pleasant way, I suppose. It was just I had a nice lunch, fairly substantial, a couple of glasses of wine. I was quite enjoying just a pleasant, quiet walk, and you probably appreciated the fact I didn't gabble on for another 20 minutes. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.